Hi, my name is Eric Lin. I'm a New York-based cinematographer of films like Hearts Beat Loud and The Sound of Silence, which was in competition at Sundance this year. It's kind of been a circular path, rediscovering vintage lenses. In film school, like Zeiss Super Speeds were kind of like all you could get. It was like very easy, very cheap lens, and rental houses would rent them dirt cheap to students. So I got very accustomed to look, and I was always interested in kind of more modern optics as my kind of budgets grew. But recently with digital sensors, I kind of wanted to rediscover vintage lenses and like those qualities, and I felt like they came across, especially on digital, in such an interesting way. You know, the common idea of really trying to take the edge off the digital image sensors, striving for different textures in the image through using older, softer vintage lenses was something that I was interested in pursuing and testing a lot.
Hey, Theodore.
You know, we talked a lot about the film Her and how the softness of those vintage lenses kind of spoke to like the world we were going for, the warmth of it, and also the rendering of that warmth. And a film like Hearts Beat Loud, for me, lent itself to like really shooting on vintage lenses. So the film kind of revolves around Frank, who's a vinyl record store owner, and you know, it speaks to his kind of aesthetic and his quality. And I thought it was immediately when I read the script, I thought about shooting it with vintage lenses. And so we did a lot of tests and prep and to find the right set of lenses, because vintage lenses, and depending on the era that you kind of choose, have such different optical qualities, different degrees of distortion or chromatic aberration and flaring. So you have to really think about what you're trying to get out of that set. TCS, this camera rental house here in New York, has a great library of vintage lenses, so we were able to go there and test 10 or 12 sets or something, put them up against each other, and then as we watched it, it kind of revealed itself which set we landed on. It was the Kawa Cinepromenar spherical lenses, which are these old Japanese lenses from the 80s. They had kind of a cooler rendition, which kind of helped with taking the edge off saturated colors. You know, I wanted it to have an analog feel. And also they had this really kind of magical flares that we really wanted to play with towards the end of the film during the performances. And that's when we brought them out. And they were something that really worked with those performances. All lenses will kind of flare in different ways, but modern lenses make it very, very tough to flare the lens. It's a much cleaner image. They're going for more technical perfection. Older lenses had to deal with the light flaring and light bouncing within the lens in different ways. And that gives each of those lenses like a different kind of flare. For instance, like Zeiss Super Speeds, they will flare in a very cool way. When you see the flare, it'll be like kind of a blue cyan, almost magenta sometimes. So the Kawas, I think it's like an opposite. The cooler rendition of the coating actually made the flares like orange and like circular. And so you have to kind of discover what kind of flare you want that's appropriate for the film. And like Her, they had like a library of vintage lenses on set when they were shooting. And some of the scenes when he's in the sun have these incredible like octagonal flares. Some of them have like very circular flares when he's using like Canon K35 zooms. You know, we wanted to kind of discover that for our film, like what was the right kind of flare and the right kind of a texture. It was also the focal lengths available.
Behold the lens.
Your standard focal lengths might be like 18, 25, 35, 50, 85. Sometimes getting focal lengths that are in between help you see things differently, right? Like you might do like a medium close-up in a standard 50 millimeter, but if you do it with a 40 mil, it forces you to be slightly closer in a different way, and you see slightly more of the world. So when you're choosing vintage lens sets, you're more restricted. I loved that the 40 mil allowed me to be closer but see more of the world, and it was always about environment with them. You know, we really want to see behaviors, you know, see people in two shots, see them in context.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Acosta, and I'm Director of Photography of the Film Day. I've always been fascinated by the technique called veiling, not showing someone or something in their entirety. I like the idea that we're obscuring a part of someone's self or the whole scene that you cannot see it. And that's always been done, I guess, in literature and other forms of art, but I think it's fascinating how you can express it in the art of cinema.